Welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today we are joined by Pat Flynn with Smart Passive Income. It's hard to go anywhere in the online marketing world today without bumping into some of the things that Pat has done. He's been around for a long time, sharing so much value about starting different brands online, from websites to YouTube channels to writing books to launching products. Pat joins us today to talk about his latest success and, ironically, what he's calling the biggest success of his career. It's his YouTube channel focused on Pokemon. So he started Deep Pocket Monster back in January of 2021, so just over 2 years ago now. Fast forward to today, this YouTube channel has over 600,000 subscribers, and it's making mid to high five figures per month. That's right. He's generating $40,000, $50,000 per month from just ads on YouTube. And then on top of that are all the brand deals and sponsorships he has. He is a wealth of knowledge about how to start a successful YouTube channel. And he gets on and just unloads a ton of information and a ton of tips about what has made this YouTube channel successful, what you need to focus on when beginning. He talks about how he got into the Pokemon space, how he storyboards his videos, what's important from a metric standpoint. He shares about his emphasis on community and how deep he's gone into the community of Pokemon. And as a result, I would say to try to make his YouTube channel a success, but it's almost the other way around. Perhaps the success of his channel is because he's such an invested member in that community. And so there's so much to learn about YouTube. We talk about YouTube a lot on here, but we usually talk about it as it relates to an online website or brand. Pat's flipped that model and made the brand the YouTube channel, so you'll definitely want to listen in. Before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
What a crazy campaign. How to Sleep on Your Back. This campaign got us links in Huffington Post, Glamour magazine, Mirror, and lots of other great news publications. Let me show you how we've done it. It was so simple. Our sleep client provided us with expert commentary about how to train yourself to fall asleep on your back. They also gave advice on why it's best to sleep on your back. Once we've had this information, we went to Muckrack and searched for journalists that consistently write about sleep and well-being. We've sent these journalists the advice provided by the client, and within 1 day the links started flowing in. Glamour magazine, a DR81 website, picked it up. Huffington Post, DR88, Mirror UK, DR90. A massive avalanche of links blasted to our client's website with this simple yet effective campaign about how to sleep on your back. I hope this inspires, and I hope you'll use this technique to land massive links to your or your client's website.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now. Welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman, and today we're joined by Pat Flynn with Smart Passive Income. Pat, welcome on board.
It's great to be back after a decade. We were just talking about this. A lot has happened since then, but thank you for having me.
I was talking with Spencer about having you on, and he said it'll be great to have Pat back on the podcast. And I said, I didn't know he was on the podcast, so I had to literally scroll forever to pull up the episode. It was released on May 21st, 2012. So here we are. I mean, almost 11 years later to the day in 2023. So welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a pre-beard Pat Flynn, and that was, we just had our second baby at that time, and now my son is a teenager. It's wild. Like, time's going by so quickly, but still here online, still doing the thing. Some people are like, Pat, you're an OG, and I'm like, that makes me sound really old, but I guess I kind of am now.
It's a term of endearment, I have to say. It's got it's good. It's better than the alternative, right? I guess you could have something else cast your way. So
that's true. That's true.
I mean, obviously, the Smart Passive Income brand almost speaks for itself for anybody who's gotten involved in online marketing and in the passive income world. I've known of Smart Passive Income and you for quite a while now, and I'm sure most listeners will will have a little bit of knowledge about you, but maybe if you could try to catch people up on 15 years
Sure.
of your history in a short period of time, maybe give us some backstory before we jump into what we're talking about today, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, so in 2008, that's when I started my entrepreneurial journey online, and I was sort of forced into it. I had gotten laid off from my architecture job. I had planned to do that for the rest of my life, but the recession happened. I got kicked out, and I started an online business, got a lot of inspiration from listening to podcasts and reading books and stuff around the time that we're talking about online business. Never had tried it before, but what I created actually worked out. I had built a website to help people pass an architectural exam. This was my first niche website, if you will. A very specific exam in the architecture space called the LEED exam. I built a website for that to help people pass that exam. I ended up publishing a PDF file study guide and just kind of figuring things out along the way. And in late October of 2008, I had generated more money than I was making as an architect that I had spent years leading up to. And I was like, wow, this is very different than where I thought I was going, but let me keep going down this path. And so I did. And eventually ended up creating a website called smartpassiveincome.com that a lot of people know about now. And that is where I just basically shared everything that I was working on in my architecture online business and then future online businesses that I created and sort of shared publicly. Everything from a security guard training website to building iPhone apps to starting a food truck website to then building software and more recently some stuff in the world of YouTube and community and online courses. And it's just been amazing because I still get emails from people who say, you know, they had listened to my podcast or who had read my income reports back in the day, who started a new career or trajectory in their life because of my podcast or the blog or something. And it's just, you know, really cool to see a lot of that stuff that was built and created a long time ago still continuing to help people today, which is amazing. I've sold a few businesses here and there. I have written several books. I've spoken on stage. Even without proper grammar. And I am just grateful for just the ability to now see opportunity and to no longer feel like even if I lost everything that I'd be, you know, that I'd be done for. Like I know that now after a decade, I have the skills to be able to sort of find opportunities to solve those problems and to create something new, which is my favorite thing to do. You know, I have systems in place and automation in place with a lot of the businesses I have. Another business I created in 2017 to 19 was a physical product. My videographer and I invented a product called the Switch Pod. It was a tripod for vloggers, and that did very well. And that's mostly automated right now too. So as you can see, I have my hands and feet in a lot of different things, but the common pattern is just I like to create new things and I like to explore my curiosity and help people at the same time.
Yeah, good job. You really actually covered so many of the things that you've done in a good amount of time. Well done. I like that.
Yeah, not too long, I guess.
No, not at all. Well, you've got so much, and that's what kind of I was gonna say. I mean, I feel like everything you've done, and probably not everything, but it feels like everything you've done, you've shared semi or completely publicly. I mean, I can even think about a book you launched. I can think about the podcast tool that you launched along the way, and you know, dating all the way back to some of these niche websites that you built. There's a lot of crossover there because a lot of this audience, you know, perhaps back in the early days started listening to different niche site projects that Spencer was doing. But, you know, you've always shared it very publicly. I think maybe we can use this to launch into what we're talking about today, which is the Pokemon YouTube brand that you started. And I can't wait to talk about this. We could pick almost any of those things you mentioned, though, to go into depth on. But you've always had this desire, even going all the way back to your architecture training website or blog, to share publicly about a journey before it is successful, making money. I mean, I think I remember hearing that you didn't even really know people were going to that original blog back in the day. And then it turns out that you learned how to monetize it and make it successful. What's the drive for you to share publicly before you're even successful? That's scary. That's, you know, you could fail. All these different things go into that.
I think it's almost like the how it's made in real time. You know, we all love watching how it's made on the Science Channel or Discovery Channel, and it's like we just love to see how the the thing gets created. And I like even on short form video right now, there's a lot of creators who are showing the process of how they do something. It's just so fascinating. We dive into that. And so for me, when I was becoming an entrepreneur, it was always fascinating to find those who were willing to share what worked and what didn't, because that was super helpful for me. And it was through that journey of trying to find that information that I then discovered myself and discovered what I could do. So I always sort of like feel it's like a way for me to pay it forward for those who opened up and were transparent for me. And it just so happens that I get that real-time feedback when I share things like the income reports or the niche site duel that I did, and wins or fails. It's always a lesson. Therefore, it is always a win. And that's what I love about that as well. Plus, it's just I love the challenge. I think I just so much enjoy the discovery of new paths to different solutions. And it's just like it's like a puzzle to me. And it's like if imagine a puzzle that you create, or that like a puzzle you buy at the store, like 1,000 pieces. Like imagine only enjoying it when you have all 1,000 pieces down. It's like, well, then what's the point of the puzzle? Well, the point of the puzzle is to find those pieces that fit. And when you like find one that fits, it just feels so good. Like I feel that discovery every time as I'm trying to figure things out, even if I don't see the full picture yet. And that's what's just so fun about it. And that is another thing I try to do with my process is just find the fun. Because if it's not fun, it's like, why am I even doing this? And even though things are hard and potentially even stressful, I still try to find the fun within it, because that's what keeps it going, and that's what keeps it exciting, and that's what leads to when I do find the solution or that puzzle piece, it feeling really good, and that amping me up to go and then find the next piece.
One more question along those lines before we get into the Pokemon
Sure.
YouTube channel, and I think it's just so interesting and important to hear your answer on this. How important has it been, do you think, in the success of a lot of these projects that you shared it publicly? And that you had that to keep you accountable and almost drive you further to succeed a bit. And I'm asking because a lot of us spend time building websites or apps or whatever it is we're doing in kind of privacy. And so we don't have to be accountable to anyone but ourselves. And sometimes we're our worst people to be accountable to. How important was it that some of this stuff was public and it almost forced you to keep pushing to make it a success?
I mean, it's so important for several reasons. The accountability piece is really key, especially for somebody like me who's motivated by, being of service to others. I'm an Enneagram 3, and that's very much in my DNA. So for just the purpose of production, putting things out there and having other people be involved and invested in it encourages me to keep going. But even more important than that, and something I discovered actually around 2010 when Spencer and I were kind of, Longtail Pro was like the big thing, and we were all kind of in that niche site world. A big thing that I wanted to do was also build software. I saw Spencer do it. I saw so many other people do it. And I was like, I have an audience that's bigger than these people. I could create something too. So I had built a WordPress plugin in secret to then launch it to the audience and kind of go big with it. I was very encouraged by other people who were sharing what they were doing in the world of software. So I created my own. And a project that was supposed to take 6 months and about $6,000 or 6 weeks and $6,000 ended up taking like 8 months and $18,000 because I just didn't know what I was doing. And then it finally got to the point where I was happy with the product, and there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of, just miscommunication with the developers. But finally I got something good. I shared it, and it just was a flop. I didn't even go to market with it because it just didn't even make sense really for people. And they were like, oh, this is kind of cool. And probably the hardest part of that process and that launch was, I didn't even launch it, but the hardest part of that was hearing the feedback of people after I'd spent all that time of what would make it even better. Oh, it should do this, or hey, this is kind of close, but what if it did this instead? Or, I don't need that, but I need this. And I was like, why didn't I have these conversations ahead of time first so I can discover what not to do, or that the path I thought was the right path was not the right path. And this is what actually inspired my book, Will It Fly, which is how to test your next business idea so you don't waste your time and money. You need to be open and upfront about these things. And yes, there is that sort of thing in the back of your head that says, oh, well, somebody might steal my idea, right? Which is always what we say. But the truth is you are going to get more benefit of sharing your idea and getting all the people to poke holes in it first, as opposed to, the very slim chance that somebody would steal it. And even if they did, you're not, you're going to add yourself into it, and you're the one working on it. People will say they want to do something, but they never do. So for that reason, it's important to share these things, because you can also have people sort of help create the thing with you. That's what the Switch Pod did. This was a physical product. We actually developed a prototype and then went to conferences with this prototype that didn't even look very well, and we just gave it to creators and said, hey, do you like the feel of this? Do you like the idea? What do you like? What do you want to see instead? And yes, there was always the risk that one of them could have, manufactured the thing on their own, but they were so busy anyway.
Right.
It was our job to figure out what was going to work and what wasn't. And then essentially this product that was now 13 iterations later wasn't built by us. It was built by the people who left the feedback for it. And now that it came out, when we launched it in February of 2019, they already had seen it. It was basically marketing built into the research process, and they were all rooting for it to succeed. Mm-hmm. So all those people shared it too. So much benefit in getting those people involved ahead of time and almost working in public.
Yeah, I was going to say the buy-in alone, you almost have pre-marketing done by the number of people that you get to work with from building it in public and stuff. So, wow.
Exactly.
Great thoughts. Let's transition into kind of the meat and potatoes of today. Like I said, we could dive into so many of your projects and really unpack them. I encourage everyone to go smartpassiveincome.com, your podcast, if they want to just really kind of nerd out. You also have a lot of guests you bring on and talk with them on the podcast about what they're succeeding in and whatnot. Let's talk about this YouTube channel, though. Let's talk about this Pokemon brand you started. I that's what I reached out to you about for the podcast, because I just think we're talking about YouTube a lot more here, and what you've done over the last 2+ years here is really phenomenal. And I just want to unpack it with you. Maybe set the stage for this YouTube channel, Deep Pocket Monster, the impetus behind it, the inspiration behind it, and then we'll kind of dive into the details.
So I started on YouTube back in 2009, actually, with my Pat Flynn channel. And that channel was just such a slog. I didn't know what I was doing, didn't have any help, didn't try to figure out what was going to work on YouTube. It was just sort of a repository for videos here and there. I have had some videos do really well there, like my podcast tutorial, which has been seen by millions of people. But in general, when I publish a video, it doesn't do very well there comparatively to what I've now created. In 2020, of course, the pandemic happened. Everybody was sitting at home, and the collectibles world just exploded. Everything from Pokemon to sports cards to comics. People were just like, I need to find joy somewhere. So collectibles was booming. And I got sucked into that. Actually, my kids were into Pokemon first and got me into it. And then I started, like I do with everything with them, I started doing research because I want to learn more about it. I did the same thing when they were into Fortnite and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to learn how to play Fortnite so we could play together. I did the same approach with Pokemon, and I just ended up diving so deep into the space, so much so that I just, my when you sign into YouTube, it shows you recommendations. Like, all the videos were about Pokemon. I had no idea that I was going to start a Pokemon channel. It was just, I was sucked into this world. And some of the people who were creating there, I just loved watching them so much. They were going live. I ended up becoming a moderator for one of the channels, and using that opportunity just to kind of learn more about who's here and what's happening in this space. Again, no idea that I was going to create a YouTube channel yet. And I discovered that a lot of these people were just like me. In fact, Pokemon is, built for kids, but a lot of the people who were once kids, who are now grown-ups, who now have money to spend, are the ones watching these videos and collecting and investing and flipping and doing all these other things. And they're doing it with their kids too, which is pretty cool. And that was like me. Hey, I'm going to bring, I want to do this with my kids as well. Well, after maybe 3 or 4 months of doing that, I discovered that, my entrepreneurial brain turns on eventually with these things. And it's like, there's some opportunity here. I think there's somebody who can come in, who can bring some story into this space, some really nice cinematography. A lot of these people were doing the exact same things and didn't really understand marketing, didn't really understand story, didn't really understand content creation, but they were still doing very successful things, showing and opening up and opening up cards and having fun. And the cool thing about the world of Pokemon, especially with packs and boxes that you open, is there's a built-in mystery inside of a pack, right? You open the pack and it might be the gold card. It might be the really extremely rare alternate art card that we've all been looking for in there. You never know. So as a viewer, you kind of watch and then you kind of hope it's there. And if it's there, you get just as excited as the person who's opening it on video. So I was like, you know what? I think I want to start a YouTube channel, and I think I could provide some help to this space. and hopefully lead by example and just kind of inspire people in some way. So then it was like, okay, well, I can't come in and pretend like I'm an expert because I'm not. I don't know anything in this space, in fact. And is that going to stunt my growth? Well, if I pretended to be an expert and didn't have the knowledge, of course it would. So I knew that I was just going to come in and be sort of a newbie in this space and be upfront about that, like I have been, like with everything else. Can I compete on these other people's collections? No, because my collection was really small. So I can't pretend like I have the biggest collection and use that as a way to drive people in, because there are people who've been doing this for 20 years and have a much more massive collection. Am I going to be able to compete on finding the really rare trophy cards and all these kinds of things? No, because I don't have that much money to spend on cards that are worth 6 figures now, who these people have been holding for a while, and now these things are appreciating. So what can I do? Well, I can come in and be the person who is sharing my collection journey with everybody. Again, very similar to what we were talking about before, just kind of follow along. And I'm going to share in creative ways the things I'm learning as I try to build my collection. And that was my approach. That was going to be my positioning. But I also knew that having YouTube experience from the past, knew how to make great thumbnails and titles, because I finally figured that out. And I could tell a great story, which I've learned how to do on podcasts and books and on stage. So let me combine all those things. And then in January of 2021, I created a YouTube channel called Deep Pocket Monster. And in 1 year, actually in 11 months and 23 days, we hit 100,000 subscribers. And we are now about 2 years and 3 to 4 months into it. And we're just about to cross 600,000 subscribers, which subscribers is one metric, but I mean, that just shows you how much faster this thing was growing. My other channel took 9 years to get to 100,000 subscribers. I was able to do that in less than 1 year with this channel. Now, the Pokemon thing is crazy too, because of the reach that these videos are getting. A couple videos that I published got on the trending page on YouTube, millions of views within just a couple days. And no, these are not shorts. These are longs. These are regular videos. And that's the unique thing that I'm bringing into the space as well. Longer videos, because a lot of creators are going more short form. But telling good stories has been a really, really important component of this. And then now we're at a point where we have 3 or 4 different buckets of videos that we contribute to. So one of those buckets is where I'm buying somebody else's collection, and I share that collection, and I give away some of the cards that I pick up in that collection to people on live stream. So that's one bucket that has been very successful. Another bucket is where I do these videos where I try to complete sets, right? There are sets that come out every few months, and I try to complete them within a certain period of time, and those have become very popular. There's a set of videos that where I purchase things from websites, and we kind of see, are they actually worth the amount that I'm paying for? It's a mystery box sort of situation, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. But what is really amazing is this venture, now 2 years into it, is probably the most profitable thing that I've ever put my hand into. It is providing ad revenue. We're at a point now where we're making $35,000 to $50,000 a month on ad revenue alone on YouTube. There are sponsorship spots within those videos that now command 5 figures per spot. There are paying members of the YouTube channel who pay a small monthly fee to just support the channel, like a Patreon type of deal on YouTube. And then there's merch, and I'm an affiliate for some products here and there. And it's just, I don't know how we got here. Well, I do know how we got here. We understood how YouTube worked, and we understood exactly what our audience would be glued to the TV screen for, or their devices for, and that's really it. So I don't know where you want to go with that, but that's just kind of the origin story and kind of how we got to where we're at now. Analytics has been a really important thing, diving into the analytics, going into a video and going, okay, what here are people really, really glued to, and where do people drop off? And every video teaches us something about the next video. Every thumbnail we create teaches us something about the next thumbnail we should create. And this is a very lean thing as well. I have one producer and one editor, and that's it. And I have, on the SPI side of things, 10 people working for me full time. We have like podcasts and email newsletters and videos coming out. And with just 1 or 2 videos a month on YouTube, we're able to surpass the revenue and profit. It's just, I don't even know. It's just kind of a wild thing. Because, again, I didn't know anything about Pokemon 2 years ago.
Well, I mean, if you sum that all up in so many ways, how encouraging for anybody listening that within a year you were seeing crazy traction. I mean, I don't know, 100,000 subscribers would be crazy traction for most people. And within 2 years, wildly profitable about something you didn't know a thing about 2+ years ago. So that's super encouraging. Yes, I have a ton of questions for you.
Yeah, I think, the one thing that I will say that has worked that I carried over from everything else that I've done in the past is being so obsessed with how can I serve this audience? And in this case, it's in the form of a video. How can I use the video platform to just make people happy and excited or teach them something in a way better than everybody else? And that's what we've been hyper focused on. And that focus has led to just exponential growth and hockey stick-like curves, both on the views, subscribers, and of course the revenue is a byproduct of that.
I tend to think that it is the collection of all the things you mentioned coming together that has to do with that hockey stick. And I think that's important too, because for people listening, sometimes when we listen to somebody's success story, we think maybe we can just take little pieces of it and apply it and get results. But sometimes it actually is the collection of all those things together, which I want to talk about because you hinted at each of those things. In my notes, I was going to comment just how well produced these videos are. I watched a couple of them and I mean, they are very well, they're not just well edited. And I think a lot of people might think that a good YouTube video is well edited, but there's story behind it. You're right. There's like a lot of story crafting behind it. But also like the passion and the excitement you bring. And it's also very different than anything else that's out there from my just, 30 minutes of watching other Pokemon videos. But let me start by going back to kind of the origin story, if I could. What were the things as you were 3 months in to Pokemon, more focused, like you talked about where your YouTube recommended videos was just nothing but Pokemon stuff. Like you were just obsessed over trying to learn about it so you could interact with your kids on that level. But what were the things you began to see that made it in your mind a good opportunity to dive into? Like what made it underserved? What were the gaps? Just specifically, maybe if you could go into some of those identifiers you had.
Yes. So first and foremost, I dove really deeply into the comments. When I start to get curious about something, I love to see how other people think about things, right? Like Amazon reviews are some of my favorite readings because I get to see like in the psyche of the person who bought that, why they loved something so much or why they hated something so much. And it's just so fascinating to me. So I started to do the same thing in the Pokemon space in the comments. And you'd start to see a lot of people like there's one person who like basically in every video they just open up new sets, and like in the beginning it was cool, but a lot of people started to just share how they just started getting tired of seeing the same old thing. I started seeing comments about people saying like, hey, where's the, like I'm looking for something new. The Pokemon community is just starting to get a little boring and dry. So those are signs, right, from the community itself that there is potentially open opportunity. Now, they're not going to say, oh, this is dry, here's bullet points of the kind of creator I would like to see. They're not going to often say that. And this is why when you create something to fill in one of those gaps, it's important to know that you might not hit the nail on the head right away, but you need to experiment. We did a lot of videos in the beginning that we thought, or we had a hypothesis that these were videos that the audience would like. We did a lot of really documentary style videos about historical cards that were really well produced, that had a ton of research in it, that both the audience and YouTube's algorithm basically said, these are nice, but these aren't going to be the things that are going to go wide. So we took those as signs and then just continued to experiment until we found the different buckets that seemed to really resonate with the audience that we found. In addition to that, being a mod of a channel was great because I was able to now have conversations inside of communities with people almost directly or in groups. And it was through that I could start to ask questions like, who's your favorite creator and why? Those kinds of questions can really help you understand like what are people really enjoying about this, right? Because a creator might have different facets, but you can be surprised about why they like a particular creator, right? There was one in particular who I remember who didn't have the biggest collection, but like always brought these silly jokes into his content, and people just like would laugh at them or call that moment out in the comment section. And it's like interesting how that little thing that has nothing to do with Pokemon is the differentiator that made people love that thing or that moment, or it was the memorable thing. Which is why, and it just, I'm grateful that dad jokes come pretty normal to me, that those insert themselves into the videos so much now that they've just become a part of the culture of Deep Pocket Monster. So much so that I have been called a few times both the dad and the uncle of the Pokemon community because of that, which is really neat to see. Other things that I've learned over time is that, like, there was one person named PokeRev, who, this is the channel that I was a moderator for. He had like a blow up alien behind him, and this was like a character. This alien, which had nothing to do again with Pokemon. There aren't aliens in Pokemon, but it just became like a character on his streams, like this alien, and that was just so interesting to me. So much so that, like, the chat started saying, like, "Hey, Alien Squad," and like we're the aliens here. We're not of this planet. We're Pokemon people from outside of this world, etc. All referencing this alien character. And it's like, wow, that's so fascinating. And it reminds me of, just certain communities or baseball teams and mascots and other, like, cultural elements within a community that just bring that group closer together, right? It's like, if you know kind of stuff. So over time on the Deep Pocket Monster channel, we've had certain things come up where when they do come up, we purposefully turn them into characters that are recurring. And one of them, one of the buckets that I do is I buy mystery boxes from eBay or Wish.com, and they're usually pretty bad, by the way. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll take the hit and we can all kind of open this together, but it's going to be my loss usually. And sometimes it's a win, but either way, it's fun. But in one of the boxes I opened, the first thing that comes out in a Pokemon mystery box is this dish rag, like a old 70s style pattern dish rag. And then again in the video, I'm like, okay, this is weird. I can just throw it aside, or I can highlight this and make it a big deal, which is exactly what I did. And it kept popping up in the video. I kept wiping the table with it. And then eventually I went live, and I just, like, wiped the table with the dish rag again, just to kind of, like, take the dust off the table because it was just next to me. And a bunch of people on the live stream were like, yo, was that the dish rag from the video you published last week? And I was like, oh, this thing? Yeah. And it's become such, like, a meme on the channel now that we have emojis that are dish rags with eyes on it. Whenever I bring it out just to wipe the table, the members just, like, spam the chat with the emoji of the dish rag. And I will pop it into videos every once in a while, not say a word. And in the comment section, people are like, oh, there's that dish rag again. And it's like, again, those little things matter. It's such a strange thing. I don't even know if that can be taught. It just has to naturally come about as you build a community. And that's become the really big thing here recently, both on SPI and in this Pokemon space, is that word, community. How do we make people feel like they belong to something? And I think that's the thing that I nailed right away on this channel. Was I wasn't the guy who had the most massive collection who is almost unrelatable, right? Super knowledgeable, an expert, but kind of unrelatable. You're never going to get access to that kind of stuff. I was the person who's just like you, who's learning about this stuff, who doesn't know all the names of the Pokemon, really. So when I read a Japanese card, I need the help from the chat, and I'm not afraid to admit that. So nobody can say, oh, look at this person, he's not an expert. They'll say, yeah, Pat's not an expert, just like me. In fact, I can teach him some stuff, but we were all there once before too. And now people can relate to me more in that way. And a community is all about having people who relate to each other come together. And on the outside, especially in this Pokemon space, it's like people think we're weird. We're grown people playing with cardboard with cartoons on it, right? We just collect shiny cardboard. But if you're on the inside, this all means stuff to us. We have a common language. We have a common culture. We can all be weird together. And in that world, we're not weird anymore, which is why the community aspect is really big, and why we have a Discord with over 5,000 people in it, and why people show up every single week to my live streams that have 4,000 to 5,000 people all at the same time watching from all around the world, and why I get emails from people who say, Pat, you are the reason why I am happy, because the rest of I'm getting bullied at school, or work sucks, but when I come home and I watch your streams, like, I can just be a nerd with you. Thank you so much. And it's just like, wow. I remember getting bits of that in the SPI world with people who were wanting to be entrepreneurs and everybody else was telling them to get a real job. Very similar thing. But here in the Pokemon space, it's even wider and bigger and cross-generational, and it's just, the same kind of thing. Community, bringing people together, using the content to show that relatability. And this is why, like in my challenge videos, like sometimes I fail the challenges, and people love to see that I fail, not just because that they want to see somebody fail, but because that's relatable. That's relatable. But that failure makes it, when I win or complete those challenges, that much better, and people can relate to that as well. And they almost feel like they're like, if I win something, we're all winning it in a way.
Well, I was going to draw the connection. You did it perfectly. Like as you talk about the origin story of the Pokemon YouTube channel, it seems to remind me part and parcel for the origin story of smart passive income, right? Like you kind of, and I'm sure it wasn't exactly the same, but at that time of your life, you were diving deep into this world of making money online and didn't know anything about it, and was blogging about it, sharing about it, and by the way, building community. Just because you're the one who's sharing about something that so many of us are looking into or going through or trying to figure out ourselves. And whether you realized it or not, it sounds like you kind of replicated the same approach with Deep Pocket Monster with the Pokemon channel.
Actually, you're absolutely right. Except the difference here this time was I had some skills that I knew how to do, like on YouTube. I knew how to tell story better. I knew how to connect with people and et cetera. Stuff that I didn't know how to do or was too scared to do before. And that takes me to number 2, which is, the confidence, right? I have now some years under my belt doing this thing. So I'm not afraid to put myself out there anymore. And yes, I will get haters, and I had gotten haters. In fact, when I came into the space and people started seeing the videos blowing up, a whole bunch of people who've been in the space for a while were essentially acting as gatekeepers. Like, hey, who are you? You're not, why are you, right? Like, why are you here? And what I discovered was a lot of these people were mostly just jealous because they've been in this for a while. They've been working hard and they create decent content. And then here comes this new guy who doesn't know anything about Pokemon and then just like exceeds their views and subscribers and revenue. And it's like they get mad at me, they get mad at YouTube. But then I go, hey, well, let me help you, right? A lot of these people who were mad at me up front, I said, well, hey, this stuff isn't secret. I teach this stuff. Let's get on a call together and I can analyze your YouTube channel a little bit for you and help you out. Some people didn't want to take me up on that offer. Many people did. And I've had one-on-one conversations with people. I can name them right now. And then they see their videos doing better. And now they're massive fans. Mm-hmm. And now they're at a point, which leads me to another thing that's happening in this space right now, is I'm putting on a live event in the Pokemon space. Remember, 2 years ago, I didn't know anything about this space. I was a nobody in the space. I'm hosting a live event. This is what I talk about in my book, Superfans. Create a space for these people to come together. I've done that online. Now I'm doing that offline. In June of 2023 here, I'm hosting an event called Card Party. I wanted it to be PokeCon, but that would not be good with Pokemon and IP. So it's Card Party. And we have already sold over 1,000 tickets. I've not spent a dime on marketing. And most of the top creators in the Pokemon space who I've connected with or built friendships with or the people who were once haters, they're coming to the event as well. And I haven't had to pay any of them to come. They just want to come. They usually get paid to go to CollectCon or Comic-Con or all these kinds of places. They just want to come and hang out. And this is going to make it an incredible community event. And it's not about me. But as a result of being the person who puts this together, I know it's ultimately going to come back to me as well. And everybody, we're going to lift the whole community up together. So I hope this is, as you said earlier, encouraging for people who are still trying to figure out where they want to go or what they want to get into. If you focus on the human beings on the other end and giving them not just like the information, what they want, because information is available anywhere now, right? This is why the human experiences and those culture-based things are what's going to make you stand out from everybody else now, especially as like AI is coming in. It's like, like the information is so freely accessible and it's even like smartly personalized to you now. What's going to be the difference? How are you going to stand out? Create those experiences, build those communities.
Man, so much of what you're talking about reminds me of my experiences as a professional photographer and watching that industry change from the old guard to the new guard, from film photography, and where the experience was all about the images. And as that transitioned to the new guard, digital photography, the image became secondary to the experience that people had while they were engaging with the images and the process of creating the images. And the old guard fighting the new guard, because everything was changing from it all being about the picture to it being about the experience along with the picture, and walking through all that. It reminds me so much of what you're talking about here. Before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
Do you remember this campaign? It was all over the news. It is the most intelligent royal campaign. With over 100 links generated in the world's biggest online publications, this is one of the most viral PR campaigns of 2021. This is how we've done it. The methodology was pretty simple. We looked at the QS World University Rankings for the institutions attended by key members of the royal family to discover which royal is the brightest of all. Meghan Markle came out on top, followed by Kate Middleton and Prince William. We put these findings in a press release and sent it to mainstream media and journalists who write about royals. From Russia to the UK, the US, Vietnam and Japan, this story got massive coverage, landing over 100 links and created a massive buzz on social media. Simple research, but a great story that journalists love to write about. I hope this will put you on fire and will give you inspiration.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now. For you, as it relates to the production of the videos, and I want to transition into maybe the production side of things, because your videos are very well produced. And I know that's overwhelming for a lot of people to think about how much production does my video need? I don't have those skill sets. How much of the value that you've gotten in terms of subscribers and engagement and community is from that production value? And how important do people need to kind of think about that as they're relating to, or as they're starting to engage in a YouTube channel for themselves?
The production can definitely be scary, especially when you see all these quick cuts and zooms and all. Like, I don't even know how to do that. But honestly, those things are supplemental to the story that you're telling, right? For example, if you have a big point to make in a video, that's the point where you zoom in when you have that punchline, right? The zoom in enhances that punchline. So it's not just random. Like, these things are there to help support. But a great story doesn't need any of that editing. If you have a great story and the editing, that's even better. So a story trumps the editing and the quality of the video. In fact, there are several videos that have done very well and have built entire channels with terrible video quality because the story's good. There is a guy named Brent Brandwood, who went to the grocery store one day and he turned on his camera because he saw a lobster in an aquarium that was going to be sold for a meal. He decided to purchase it and raise it as a pet. This video went viral. Leon the Lobster is the lobster's name. And this person had been on YouTube for a very long time, like 7 or 8 years. And this video, with not even the best thumbnail, had a title that connected with people. Purchasing a grocery store lobster and raising it as a pet. When you hear that, immediately you click because you're like, what? That's different. I'm curious. Is that possible? All these questions start coming up that make you want to click, right? And so the first process of winning on YouTube is understanding, well, what is a video title that would get clicks? And this is a big thing and a big difference for, me being a podcaster and a blogger for years. The way that I produced content before was I started with the content, the thing that was helpful or the thing that I wanted to create, and then at the end, figure out what the title was after, right? Same thing with emails. Write the email, then figure out the subject line usually. But on YouTube, and now I've applied this to everything else because it works so well, I find the title first. If I can brainstorm and get messy until I figure out a title that is both clickable and interesting and fires me up, then I know that I can then film that video, and it connects better that way because there's a promise or an expectation when a person clicks a video of what it is that they're about to watch. And a lot of times, if you do it the opposite way, sure, you might be able to write a good thumbnail or have a good thumbnail and title, but it can often feel clickbaity because you're just trying to force that click versus let's make it something exciting to click and then get into that. And so that's been a very, very big strategy. But with Leon the Lobster, it's filmed on an iPhone. It's not heavily cut. It's just a great story. That first video after just a year and a half has 18 million views because of the story. So find the story and the title worth clicking on, then create that video, and you'll find some amazing things happen. And like if you do that and that alone, you'll be 75% ahead of most people who are trying to do stuff on YouTube. And then from there, it's of course the retention strategies. How do we get a person to stay watching the video after they've clicked, right? So a really good hook, and then moments in the story that sort of continue on what eventually leads to a climax or an understanding or a reveal. And again, in the Pokemon space, it's kind of built in, right? Here's the box that we're going to open. We're going to see what's inside. And at the end, we're going to see whether or not I got my money back or I didn't. And so it's like, okay, well, once you open that, loop, people are going to stick around to the end to watch it. And that's really a big secret for the algorithm. The algorithm loves when you keep people on YouTube. If you can create a video that people stick around and watch, that's like really, I mean, ultimately YouTube just wants people to stay on the platform so they can share more ads, right? So if you can keep people on YouTube on YouTube's behalf, they're going to reward you. They're going to actually send that video to more people knowing that it's going to get people to stay. So then again, learning about storytelling, what keeps people watching, creating open loops and different engagement strategies and going to different even things such as if you're doing like a video and it's like 3 top tips for whatever, just film each different tip in a different location. Like that alone will reset people, and it doesn't feel as monotonous. And being in a different location, maybe tip number 2, you're literally walking your dog, and it's just like, oh, hey, say hi to Scruffy. It's like, again, now people know, like, you're even more relatable, but you're still teaching, but you've reset the location, and it just keeps people watching longer. You're more likely to get YouTube to push your video for you. But again, to go back to your question, production just enhances the story. And if you have a great story, you need very little extra things to still make it worthwhile to watch.
How much storyboarding are you doing? Like, are we talking about like, cause I heard you mention the word arc and, like kind of more script writing almost, I feel like, are you really planning out the story, and do you recommend that? Or is it really more what you said where it's spend the time thinking about the title, which drives the content, and then get into it and make sure it's captivating and make sure to use hooks and make sure to be diligent about how you film it?
Yeah, so on Deep Pocket Monster, we do script it quite a bit, but a lot of the things are scripted after it's filmed because we don't know what's going to happen exactly. I don't know what's in that box. I don't know what cards there are. So there is a lot of scripting because it's a lot of voiceover stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
If you watch a creator, his name is Ryan Trahan. It's based on a lot of that style where he's doing something interesting that's worth watching, but then you almost kind of hear the voice in his head while it's happening. Very How I Met Your Mother in a way, if you will. But I think, again, you don't need to do that.
Right.
If the story is worth clicking on and the outcome is worth waiting for, then you just fill in the gaps in a way that would be interesting to you, and you just tell that story. For example, I was helping a person who does like Facebook ads on YouTube, or teaches Facebook ads on YouTube, and was going to do a video. It was like top 5 ways to use the new Facebook editor or something, like Facebook ads editor. I'm like, well, that's like everybody else is going to create that same video. How do you make this interesting? What would get a person to stick around to the end? Okay, well, how about you start the video this way? Hey, Facebook just released their new editor, and we're going to put it to the test. I have $100 that I'm going to spend on an ad, and we're going to see if I can double this, or I might just lose the whole thing. Now you need to know whether it's going to work or not, and along the way, he can show you the 5 new things that came out. And he's like, okay, number 1, the ad editor, look at this new thing. This wasn't here before. And so I'm going to put in my budget now, and okay, I don't know if we're going to get this back or not, but this is how you would use this if I were you. Number 2, 3, 4, 5, and then boom, the reveal, you either won or lost. Either way, you're still teaching people, and you can even do a follow-up video on that. Okay, we did it wrong last time, but let's try again for round 2. And now people are continuing to watch, and that's why people subscribe. People don't subscribe because of the video they just watched, right? This is a very common misconception. it almost feels like a subscription is something you earn because of the video that you just created.
Right.
But what happens is people are subscribing because of the videos they know will come next. Right? That's why we subscribe to something, because of what we want to come our way next. This was my problem on the Pat Flynn channel. I had videos about podcasting. Cool. People subscribed because they wanted podcasting videos, but then my next video was about affiliate marketing, or it was about, the mindset of an entrepreneur, or business finances. And those podcasting people who subscribe for podcasting, they see that come into their feed, and they're like, I don't want that. And that then signals to YouTube, oh, I guess your subscribers don't really want this, so we're going to throttle it because it's not something that your subscribers want, and we're going to, we're not going to find audiences for it. Versus if you niche down, the riches are in the niches, then every person will know every video is worth their time. And that's the approach we're taking on Deep Pocket Monster.
You have teased different YouTube metrics throughout the interview so far. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about as much of a deep dive as we can get into on some of the key metrics in YouTube, some of the things you've learned. I mean, subscribers versus viewers versus watch time. Let's just get into the metrics and talk about some of the metrics and some of the things, some of the insights you have.
YouTube is probably the best platform when it comes to delivering metrics for us for anything that you can create online. And that is good and bad. It's bad because there's 100,000 things you could look at, and then you can get confused. So I only like to look at a few of the most relevant things. Number one is click-through rate. So whenever you publish a video, you want to know what the click-through rate of that video is. And in fact, YouTube will tell you right away what the click-through rate of that video is, even within the first 10 to 30 minutes.
Wow.
And if the click-through rate is, I would say, less than 4%, that means you could do better. Right. And you can even go back into time and look at the click-through rate of your existing video library if you have one, and just swap out the thumbnails and change the title. Just hypothesize and see what might work better, and you can see jumps almost instantly when that happens. YouTube almost gives you a second chance when you do that. They'll be like, okay, you change the title, we're going to see how this works. And if it works, cool, they'll send it out to more people. If not, they'll just, it'll still be throttled. So click-through rate is important. And then watch time. Like those are, if there were only two things to look at, it's that. And that's the click and stick strategy, right? Click-through rate for people who are, whether or not they want to watch this or not. And then once they do want to watch it, are they sticking around? The click and then the stick. There's a lot more that you could look at. I would definitely look at your retention graph as well. That relates to the stickiness of your video, but you might find that there's some cliffs in your retention graph, which point to, okay, people left because they didn't like what they heard or just aren't interested. So we look very diligently at that graph and try to get it to become as flatlined as possible. So we discovered, for example, that when we initially did our challenge videos, I would sit at my office here with Pokemon cards behind me, so it was environmental. But I'd tell people what the challenge was going to be, and then I'd go do the challenge. And we noticed that there was a pretty significant drop right at the beginning because people, they didn't really understand or didn't even care about that necessarily. But we said, okay, how can we hook people in the beginning? Let's actually just start in the middle of the challenge with a trade that's about to happen, because we found out that people almost rewatch the negotiations I do on some of the trades I do in person, and we're like, oh, people really like that. What if we started a video with that and then told people what the rules were? How would that change things? And this just completely changed how many people watch our videos, not just because people are sticking around longer, but because when people do that, YouTube sends it to even more people, right? So it's almost like, I don't know if you've seen those Dude Perfect videos where they do these trick shots that are really fascinating. They throw a basketball over a house and it kind of goes in the hoop that they can't even see. It's pretty amazing what they've done. They start every video with a trick shot, and then they explain what the trick shots are about and then who the sponsor is. And they don't even welcome people to the channel because you're already into it. So with these videos, it's just get people into what it is that they are expecting when they click sooner. And then along the way, you can explain what's going on and sort of reveal. I mean, watch any Mr. Beast video. He's already being buried into the ground in the first 5 seconds with what's at stake. And then he goes, okay, and this is how this works. I got an oxygen tank. Here's how I'm going to eat. And how do I go to the bathroom? I haven't figured that out yet. And now you're getting the rules after you're already roped in. So that alone can help as well, and you'll see that again on the retention graph. And then same thing for the end. A lot of times we creators like to say, okay, and finally, here's the last thing I want to tell you, and we kind of prime people to get ready to leave. No. You just kind of like almost end abruptly. You still want to offer everything that you're going to offer, but then you don't even give a chance for people to discover that this video is about to end, because then they can go and click into another video of yours right after. So we try to remove those downward ramps on a retention graph as much as possible. And the only way to know what to do is to look at those graphs. And the only way to see those graphs is to create content. So you have to create content and be messy. You got to be a disaster before you become the master. But those things that are disastrous will teach you how to get better for sure. So again, there's a million other metrics that you can look at, but those are the only basically 2 or 3 that I recommend checking out.
Man, it sounds so much like watching a TV show as well, right? Like it sounds like the recipe in many ways on YouTube has so many things to do with what is succeeding nowadays on a TV show or on Netflix. Like a lot of times you'll start and they'll start halfway in, and then they'll come back 10 minutes later and they'll say 4 days earlier. And then they'll start telling the story, and you never end an episode of a TV show with a nice slow wind down. It's always a crazy end that gets you to want to, even though it's 11 o'clock at night and your kids are going to be up early, you want to start the next episode because of that cliffhanger. It has a lot of similarities.
And a lot of this that I'm learning on the Deep Pocket Monster channel is now coming back into my podcast on SPI and in our emails. If we have an email sequence, why do we just close an email and say, hey, thanks for reading this email? Why don't we get them excited about the next email that's coming so they're more primed to open it? Same exact kind of thing. And it's just interesting what happens when you're like, okay, I'm going to obsess with what works, and I'm just going to do everything I can to make it work, even through all the failures. And it's like I could have read 100 books about YouTube. Just putting 10 videos out and learning what I learned there is so much more valuable.
Okay, we're getting up on time. I have 2 more topics I want to get into with you. So let me see if I can transition us a little bit off course, but I want to get your thoughts on, nowadays with YouTube, there's a lot of different ways we can make videos, right? We can make a standard video and we can publish it. We can do lives, we can do shorts. How does all this play into a strategy? And is it important to consider all the different, we'll call them mediums on YouTube when you're constructing a strategy?
There's also podcasts now that you can upload video podcasts, and that's a thing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so YouTube is apparently very much in favor of the multi-format creator, and there were a lot of people who were confused even last year, like, hey, if I'm doing shorts and a long-form podcast and lives, like should all those be on separate channels? And that's what people were doing to kind of like make sure things weren't sabotaging each other, because the algorithms were almost confused. But now it's become very apparent. I've even gotten word from the people at YouTube that if you have an audience, same audience, same channel, right? So if short form video, long form video, podcast, live, if it's all targeting the same audience, keep it on the same channel. These things will and should push and amplify each other. Different audience, different channel. But that being said, I feel like if you had to choose one, I would still continue to do long form video. Okay. I mean, I've seen some stats even from, like, if you're curious about the ads perspective, it would take 75 million views of shorts to match. I think it was Roberto Blake or somebody who showed a stat. He was like, he was showing his revenue from one of his videos, and he's like, I would need 75 million short views to match what I got on this one video from longs. And yes, like, you can reach a lot of people, but in this world where I think community and connection is going to be more important than ever, I don't want to be the creator who's like handing out Halloween candy, right? Like, here's a snack and then move on.
Right.
I want to be the chef that people make sure to reserve months ahead of time because the food is so good. And I want people to, when they come into my restaurant, to just have an experience and a 4-course meal and stay there for hours, right? That's the equivalent of binge watching content. So I want to be the chef, not the person at the end of the neighborhood who, yeah, I can still have the best candy, but then people aren't thinking about me anymore after that. They're not coming back until next year. I want people to come back and reserve and bring their friends into the restaurant to experience something.
That's a good way to put shorts versus long form. I hadn't heard it. That's a great way to describe it.
Guess who taught me that analogy?
I have no idea.
ChatGPT. Give me a metaphor. Give me 5 metaphors that describe the difference between short form content and long form content. That was my prompt, and it gave me that snack one. I was like, "This is genius!" And then I actually used that on stage last month, and people were like, "Yo, I love that snack metaphor." I didn't tell them that ChatGPT gave it to me, but that's the power of ChatGPT.
And there we have our first AI mention of today's podcast. It just took a little while.
Yeah.
Man, metaphors are up its alley as well. Who would have thought?
Yep.
Hey, final question as we start to wrap up. I want to get this in. Spencer and I were actually talking about this a couple weeks ago on a live that we were doing on our weekly live session, where monetization on YouTube, and the numbers you shared were amazing. Just the profit from a CPM standpoint, or in terms of the ads that are on YouTube, and then also from sponsorships and that sort of realm. We could do a whole podcast on that, but I want to ask just a specific question that I think will be really helpful for people listening. When is it time to start pursuing sponsorships, or do you wait till they come to you? Is there any tips in sponsorships? Because it seems like a lot of people understand how to monetize with ads on YouTube. You wait till you hit the number, and then you can control that. But sponsorships are kind of a dark hole, a bit of a black hole for people understanding some of the specifics of that. Any tips you can share for people?
Yeah, brand deals are great. It's another way to monetize beyond ads, and I wouldn't just focus on one stream of income. Ads, your videos can be demonetized, something can happen, whatever. Brand deals are another way to generate revenue from your videos, and you need some views in order to attract a particular company, but I think it's relevant to the industry that you're in. There, you might still only have thousands of views versus millions of views, but still be attractive to a potential company who you can partner with. Now, before even getting into brand deals, I would recommend affiliate marketing, because you can even promote those items and share affiliate links even from day one. Right? Even with 0 views under your belt, because those are things that can then be found later, and then those become passive income streams over time. If you do a review for a product, or you share how you used something, and then people can go check it out themselves if they want. So that's where I would start. Brand deals can come later. In fact, brand deals can come after affiliate marketing. You could do some good volume for them first. Some of those videos can pop off, and that's a great starting point for you to go, hey, brand, like I did a video for you guys a while back, and it kind of blew up. Like, we should do some partnerships together. Like, how can we get more exposure for you to this audience? And that's where you can kind of start and initiate that. So that's a good thing to do. And if you sell your own products as well, using YouTube could be a little tricky, because of course we want people to stay on YouTube to grow on YouTube, but you also want to take people off of YouTube to your own stuff. And the way to go around that would be to essentially not talk about your product in every video, but every once in a while organically mention it, or promote it, or say, hey, this video is sponsored by my own product. And you can use your own product as sort of like a brand deal inside of your own videos as well. And that often will work. But if you do that all the time, then you're just encouraging people to leave YouTube, and YouTube doesn't like that. So every once in a while is fine. Good
point. There's one thing from an analytics standpoint. I love how you talked about keeping people on YouTube. That's what YouTube wants. So therefore, they will reward you with more traffic.
Yep.
Oh, so many things we could keep talking about, but I think, are at our time. Pat, thanks so much for coming on board. Like I said at the beginning, we could have talked about so many of the different things you're working on, but I really enjoyed the deep dive that we went down on this Pokemon brand. What are the plans for the future?
Yeah, so this event is the next big thing, and then doing bigger things in the space to offer more value to the community. I've got some plans that I can't quite share yet, but it should be fun. And then SPI is really focused on community right now. We've been building our All Access Pass, and it's been really, really amazing to see thousands of people come into a program to get access to all of our courses. But it's not just the information, like we were talking about earlier, that they need. It's the accountability, the support, the guidance through those courses, and that's what we've built and how we've restructured our programming. So that's been really awesome. And you can check that all out at smartpassiveincome.com.
Perfect. I was going to ask, where is the best place for people to follow along? So there it is. We'll get that link in the show notes. Well, Pat, let's not make it 11 more years. Maybe we'll try to get another one scheduled before, what would that be, 2034?
There we go. Well, you're going to be on my show soon, so make sure you subscribe to the Smart Passive Income podcast so you could hear Jared, and we'll have some more fun there and more time to chat.
The roles will be flipped for that one, so that'll be fun. I'm usually in this seat, not the other one, so that'll be a lot of fun. Thanks. Well, hey, until next time, Pat, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks so much for your sharing and continued success for not only your YouTube channel, but everything you're doing. You're such an inspiration for all of us, and we appreciate you stopping by and sharing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
What a masterpiece PR link building campaign. With 20 links in big publications such as The Sun, Express, Mirror, Wales Online, and still landing, I would say this campaign is a massive success. We told the press that people should turn on their heating this summer if they want to save money next winter. And we landed over 20 links in national and regional UK publications for our boiler client. That's crazy. The campaign hook was pretty clever. It is a known fact, at least in the boiler trade, that if you keep your boiler off for many months, it might rust and it might get you into trouble if you keep it turned off from spring to next winter. We therefore advise the press, with an expert commentary piece, on behalf of our boiler client, that people should turn on their boilers this summer just when the heat wave is in full swing. This way they can avoid a boiler failure next winter and save money. Massive publications picked up our story, including The Sun, Express, Mirror, Wales Online, and a few more dozen publications, giving our client links, lots of links, and lots of happiness hormones. No wonder that so many journalists covered our story, as this headline is a massive link magnet to their audience. This case study highlights the fact that a clever hook can be applied to any insight or story to make a campaign more successful and more compelling to journalists. Can you imagine when people see this headline in the news, "You should turn on your boiler this summer"? There is no way they would not click on it. I would click on it. So this was the hook, and this is why this campaign was so successful. I hope this video inspires and shows you what's possible with a clever hook.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now.